So in this video, we'll be talking about the 2020 MLB season. We'll go over every team, playoff predictions, award predictions, and just go through every team and see what they're all about. So predictions for every, I was going to say every conference, that's a different sport, every division. And let me know what you guys think about it. So let me know your predictions and who you think's going to win the World Series this year and stuff like that. Everyone's saying Dodgers and Yankees. I mean, mine might be the same as that, but we'll get into that and I'll explain it all throughout the video. So hopefully you guys enjoy, and let's get into it. I'm not sure what to start with, so I guess we'll do awards first. So MVP for the AL, I have Mike Trout. No surprise there. I think I picked someone else last year, and I was like, you know what? Might as well pick Mike Trout. Now has Anthony Rendon in his lineup as well, so that'll definitely help, I think. They're talking about him batting leadoff, which I guess he has not done much in his career. I don't think he's done it since his rookie year, so that would be interesting. He's been in a 2-hole most of his career, even the 3-hole sometimes. So that would be, kind of interesting if he was a leadoff man, but we'll see. Cy Young, Blake Snell. Blake Snell had a pretty injury-riddled season last year, but still a very, very good pitcher when he's on. Good ballpark for pitchers and whatnot. Has a really good rotation around him, and I think the Rays will get into the wild card as well. And Jesus Luzardo for Rookie of the Year. I mean, Luzardo only pitched, I think, 12 innings last year, had a 1.5 ERA. Showed up in that wild card game against the Rays, had 3 innings, no runs. I mean, he's a very good prospect. He's been one of the top-rated prospects in baseball for a while now, a name I've been hearing about for a while. He should have a rotation spot this year, and I think he'll have a real chance to show what he's made of, and he'll definitely get a lot of starts this year as long as he's healthy. So for the AL East, I have the Yankees in first. I mean, they won 103 games last year. They had a lot of injuries, and they already have a lot of injuries again. Of course, adding Garrett Cole for them will be huge because Luis Severino is already out for the season. Aaron Judge might be out for a while with his rib injury. Giancarlo Stanton might be out for a couple weeks to start the year. So definitely that's concerning, but they do have guys to fill in like Clint Frazier, Mike Tauchman, Miguel Andujar comes back from injury as well. So they have some guys to fill in for them, so we'll see what they do. The back of the Yankees rotation might be a real question though, because they have Jay Happ as their third starter, and he definitely struggled a lot last year. They have Jordan Montgomery, Jonathan Loaizaga. They have a prospect named David Garcia, and they need guys like that to step up. I don't know if Garcia will be like a starter right away. He might come up in like the middle of the year, but we'll see what happens. And number 2, I have the Tampa Bay Rays, so I like their outfield. They have Hunter Renfroe, Kevin Kiermaier, Austin Meadows. Their infield has some questions, especially with health, with like Brandon Lowe and Yandy Diaz. They have some good they have really good rotation, honestly. Their rotation has Blake Snell, who I have for Cy Young, Tyler Glasnow, who needs to stay healthy, Charlie Morton, Brendan McKay, Ryan Yarbrough, Yanni Chirinos. I mean, they have like 6 really good starters on this team, so some better than others, but still a really good rotation overall. And their bullpen should be pretty good. It was pretty good last year, I believe, and they should be around 90 games, win around 90 games if they're healthy. The Toronto Blue Jays, they're a very young team. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Kevin Biggio, Danny Jansen. Depends how those guys develop, honestly. If they, if 4 out of 6 of those guys or whatever it is have really good years, then I could see them having a really good year in 2020. But we'll see how they might be a year away, honestly, is what I'm trying to say. I think it might be a little too early for the Blue Jays, but I like the direction they're going in right now. So they added Hyunjin Ryu from the Dodgers, who was like a Cy Young candidate last year, Chase Anderson and Tanner Roark, so not bad. And they also have Matt Schumacher, who missed basically all of last year. He was really good in April, former Angels pitcher, but if he comes back healthy this year, he could be a nice piece at the back of their rotation. They added Travis Shaw. They do have Randall Grichuk, who can also hit a bunch of home runs. I mean, I know he strikes out a lot. His average is not that good, but Randall Grichuk can definitely hit above 30 home runs if possible. Then they have Travis Shaw in a good hitter's ballpark, so maybe he has a good year as well. For the Boston Red Sox, Chris Sale might have Tommy John surgery. I'm not sure about that yet, but he's definitely going to miss the opener at minimum. They traded Mookie Betts and David Price to the Dodgers. Their rotation without Chris Sale is scary thin. They have Eduardo Rodriguez as their ace, and he definitely has some injury concerns as well. They still have good players, Rafael Devers. They have Xander Bogaerts, JD Martinez, of course. And the guy they added in the trade, Alex Verdugo from the Dodgers, I liked him a lot. And he does have a back injury right now, so we'll see if he's there for opening day. But he might be the leadoff hitter, and if he plays every day, I'd like to see the numbers he puts up, so that's pretty exciting. For the Orioles, they only won 54 games last year, and I don't think it'll get much better. I mean, their two decent starters are John Means and Alex Cobb, but outside of that, they really have nothing in their rotation, so that's concerning. They have decent position players, Anthony Santander, Trey Mancini, Renato Nunez, and really not much beyond that. And Chris Davis is in the 5th year of his 7-year, $161 million deal, so that's also a pretty bad thing going for them. On to the AL Central. So first place I have the Minnesota Twins, who I believe won the division last year. They won 101 games last season. They've gotten better in the offseason, in my opinion. They added Josh Donaldson, who was with the Braves last year. He was with the Blue Jays for a while, the Athletics. He's had a pretty nice career. He did develop late, but he's had a nice career in the past decade or so. They have, of course, Miguel Sano, who I think will hit around 50 home runs at some point in his career. I don't know if it's this year, but I think at some point he probably will. He had a lot of home runs last year, like missed a month and a half, so it could be this year. You never know. They added some decent middle-of-the-rotation guys, Kente Maeda. They have Homer Bailey, who definitely needs to stay healthy. He has a lot of injury concerns. And they have Michael Pineda coming back from suspension, I believe, at some point as well. Their bullpen doesn't look too bad on paper, and they have players like Eddie Rosario, Byron Buxton, who I'm still waiting for the breakout. Jose Barrios could take another step as a starter, and I'm skeptical about their rotation. I mean, I did mention the middle rotation guys, Maeda and Homer Bailey, but when it comes to the postseason, I'm not sure if those guys are the type of pitchers that'll put up some great numbers in October, but maybe the Twins are a team that can trade for a frontline starter at the deadline. So number 2 is the Cleveland Indians. They did lose Corey Kluber. I think Corey Kluber missed a lot of time last year anyway. And if, Carlos Carrasco returns to form, he did have the leukemia last year, so hopefully he's back and pitches the way he used to. They have Zach Plesac as well, who is very young, needs to take another step. He did show some signs last year of being a good pitcher. They added guys like Cesar Hernandez, Franmil Reyes, another really good power hitter, and Domingo Santana, which are 3 players I really like. So we'll see what they do. And, of course, rumors have swirled about Francisco Lindor possibly getting traded. I'm not sure how true that is, but apparently they don't want to pay him all that money. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he gets traded this year if they have a bad year. And you can't forget about Jose Ramirez, too. He definitely had a hard time finding himself in the 2019 season, but towards the end of the year, things got better for him, so he should be fine hopefully this year. The Chicago White Sox are number 3, so they're very interesting. They've had themselves an eventful offseason. They added Yasmani Grandal, Edwin Encarnacion, Nomar Mazara. They added guys to the rotation, 2 lefties, Dallas Keuchel, Gio Gonzalez. So, they have a guy named Michael Kopech, who's a really good prospect. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's Kopech, whatever it is. But he's a really good prospect. Missed all of last year, I believe. They still have Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Yoan Moncada, who just got paid a lot of money. And they probably have the best backup catcher in baseball now because they signed Yasmani Grandal, but now James McCann, who I think was an all-star last year. I could be wrong about that, but I think he was an all-star, is now the backup catcher, so that's pretty interesting. Their bullpen looks pretty solid as well, and the White Sox could be a team that could shock everybody. I mean, I don't know if they'll put it all together this year, but they do have a lot of talent. They still have a pretty young team, but I feel like they can be fine. They did sign a lot of, they signed some veteran guys as well that are really good. Edwin Encarnacion's hit, I think, above 32 home runs for like 7 straight years or something like that. Yasmani Grandal has been good for a while, and Nomar Mazara can definitely have a breakout with this new team. So I'm definitely interested. I'm going to keep my eye on the White Sox this year, but I have them finishing 3rd just to be cautious. So the Royals number 4. So they have a pitching problem, to put it lightly. I mean, they do have a pretty decent batting order. They have Whit Merrifield, who I think led the league in hits last year. Jorge Soler had like 40-something home runs last year, high 40s. Alberto Mondesi is one of the better young players in baseball if he can stay healthy. And they get Salvador Perez back, their catcher, so that's nice. Their ace is Brad Keller or Danny Duffy, so that's definitely not a good sign. But, they no longer have that killer bullpen of like Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, and Greg Holland. But I think Greg Holland's actually back with this team now, so that's interesting. So I could see the Royals having a decent offense. They added Maikel Franco from the Phillies, so, I mean, he could be all right. He's still kind of young, so I think their lineup could be decent, but I just don't think they have the pitching to compete in this division. And number 5 is the Detroit Tigers. I did not realize they were that bad last year. 47-114. That's pretty darn bad, but that's one of the worst records I've seen. I'm not too high on this team, but they've added some decent veterans like C.J. Cron, Jonathan Scope, Cameron Maybin, Austin Romine. So they added some talent, but nothing great. They do have Matthew Boyd in their rotation, but not much after that. Jordan Zimmerman, who I always thought was overrated. I have no idea why they gave him that massive massive contract. And the good news is Miguel Cabrera has looked really good in spring training so far. I know he hit a couple of home runs off Garrett Cole the other day, so if Miguel Cabrera can find himself, he's not going to be that 330, 45 home run, 130 RBI guy that he once was, but if he can hit 280 and hit around 30 homers and drive in 90 runs, then that would be fantastic. So hopefully, I like Miguel Cabrera. I hope he revives his career, even on a bad team in Detroit this year. So for the AL West, we have the Houston Astros in first. They definitely had an eventful offseason, but not in the right way. But they did lose Garrett Cole, so that's definitely a bad thing. But they do add guys in their rotation, one from injury, one being Lance McCullers, who was a really good pitcher at one point, got injured. He's still pretty young, I believe, so he should be fine. They have Josh James, who I'm not sure if he's in the rotation or the bullpen, but he should be all right as well. Jose Urquidy, who has really good stuff, and if he puts it all together, he can be a really good pitcher as well. They have Yordan Alvarez, who I think won Rookie of the Year last year, and if he gets even better, then that's pretty scary, but it's possible. Their bullpen is still very strong, should be one of the best ones in baseball. And the Astros, not much changed about them lineup-wise, even rotation-wise, aside from losing Garrett Cole, but if they, as long as this stuff doesn't get to their head about the whole cheating scandal, then they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. They'll win around 95 games or so. I don't know if they'll win 105, but they should at least win around 95 games this year, as long as they're healthy. Number 2, I have the Oakland Athletics. So they have a really good rotation. They have, Jesus Luzardo, who I talked about before, my Rookie of the Year pick, Sean Manaea, who missed a lot of last year, Frankie Montas, AJ Puck. They have a lot of good young pitchers in that rotation, and we'll see if they put it together. Chris Davis with the K. I think he'll bounce back this year. He was playing injured last year, but I think he'll bounce back to his old ways of hitting 246 with 45 home runs. Their infield has some really good players, Matt Chapman, Marcus Semien, who was 3rd in the AL MVP voting last year, which I still find funny, but yes, Marcus Semien was very good last year, and Matt Olson, who did miss some time last year, but could be one of the best power first basemen in baseball. They did lose Blake Trinan in their bullpen, but they should be really good beyond that in their bullpen. I know Liam Hendricks was phenomenal last year. And I do believe Mark Cannon can break out at some point. I know he's 31 years old now, but still, he's a pretty underrated player. I think at some point he could break out, so why not this year? Number 3, I have the Angels. I mean, they added one of the better players in baseball, still underrated somehow, Anthony Rendon. They get a healthy Justin Upton back, who struggled with injuries last year. They have Mike Trout, obviously, and don't forget about Shohei Ohtani, who I think could be pitching for them towards the middle of the year. I'm not sure if he's still recovering from whatever his elbow injury was. They have Tommy La Stella, who missed half of 2019, but was really good in the first half. They added some pitchers like Julio Teheran from the Braves. They added Dylan Bundy from the Orioles, who was at one time a really good prospect. Didn't really live up to that, but still a good prospect. They have Andrew Haney at top of their rotation as well, who was another really good prospect at one time. They have Griffin Canning, who I just saw might miss 3 to 4 weeks, but when he comes back, he should be good. He was a good pitcher for them last year at some points, and he's very young. Number 4, I have the Texas Rangers, and they're a team that can be really good or really bad. I don't know what to expect from them. They hypothetically could get the Cy Young version of Corey Kluber. They can get 50 home runs out of Joey Gallo. They can have Jose Leclerc be one of the best closers in baseball, but that also could not happen. So their rotation looks pretty good, though. Corey Kluber, as I mentioned, Mike Minor, Lance Lynn. They added Kyle Gibson and Jordan Lyles as well, who are pretty good back of the rotation guys. They have some underrated players in their lineup like Willie Calhoun, Danny Santana, guys who had pretty good years last year but don't get that public recognition. And it really depends, I think. Their middle infield has to be good this year between Rougned Odor and Elvis Andrus. If they're good, then this team could be really good. I think it really depends what those guys do, and if Danny Santana, Willie Calhoun, Joey Gallo all stay healthy and the rotation does what they're supposed to do, then maybe the Rangers are the second place team in this division. It would not shock me. If this team was second in the division, it would really shock me. The Mariners, Mitch Haniger might miss half of the season. Kyle Seager might get traded at some point. There's really not much going on for them. They lost Domingo Santana. They lost Edwin Encarnacion, of course, with the trade to the Yankees last year. Their rotation does have some potential with Justice Sheffield. Taijuan Walker's back. Justin Dunn, who they got from the Mets in that Cano and Diaz trade. Their bullpen doesn't look so good. Their positional players aren't too exciting. I think their catcher's all right. I forget their catcher's name, but the guy had 20 home runs last year. So there's really not much going on for them. I think D. Gordon's somewhere on the Mariners. I don't even know, honestly. He might be a bench player for them at this point. So it might be a rough year for them, but it is what it is. I think the Mariners have been for a while a team that's between rebuilding and competing, but I think now they're fully in that rebuild mode. So I think that's the best thing for the Mariners. They finally moved on from Felix Hernandez, who's been there since like 2005, 6 maybe. It's been a long time for Felix Hernandez, so that's kind of weird not seeing him there. But I think that's the right move for the Mariners, to start fresh and try to rebuild. So on to the NL. My MVP is Christian Yelich. I don't think he won it last year. I forget who won now. Was it Acuna? Or Bellinger? I forget who won it. I think it was Bellinger, yeah. Cy Young, I have Walker Buehler. I mean, one of the better young pitchers in baseball. Is on a really good team. As long as he's healthy, he should be fine. I think he might have had a rough start to last year, but got much better as the year went on. And my rookie of the year is Carter Kieboom for the Washington Nationals, who should be the everyday third baseman. Put up really good numbers in the minors. He came up last year for like a couple weeks. Did not do well. I think he hit a home run in his first game, but outside of that, really did nothing. So, I mean, Kieboom, though, is one of the better prospects in the Nationals organization, and they were very hyped about him when he came up. So, I mean, he should get everyday reps and should play every day. So, as long as he does what he did in the minors, definitely some Rookie of the Year potential there. So for the National League, we'll start with the NL East, and this is a tough division because I can literally see 4 teams here finishing in first, but I'm giving it my best guess. I'll go with the Braves. So the Braves had a disappointing first-round exit last year in the first round, the divisional round, so that was tough to see for them. They lost to the Cardinals. They did sign Marcell Ozuna from the Cardinals with a 1-year deal. Cole Hamels, who I think is injured right now, but he should be back at some point this year, obviously. He shouldn't miss too much time. And Travis d'Arnaud at catcher, who did have a good year for the Rays last year. So they added Felix Hernandez, who we talked about before, and Hernandez is only 33 years old still, and I honestly think he can have a similar career as to what Anibal Sanchez did. I think Sanchez actually was on the Braves, then went to the Nationals, and right before that, Sanchez looked like his career was over. He had a very tough time in Detroit towards the end of his career, had like a 5 ERA a couple years in a row, then went to the Nationals and all of a sudden was really good last year. So I think Hernandez can have a similar career type to that, where people think he's washed up and he's done, but I think Felix Hernandez can definitely reinvent himself. He doesn't have the same stuff he once did based off of just wear and tear, but I still think he's a really good pitcher, obviously, and could turn it around. I wanted my Yankees to sign him, and they definitely could use a guy like that because their rotation has taken some hits so far. So outside of Hernandez and Cole Hamels, they have a good rotation. They have Mike Soroka, Mike Foltynewicz, and Max Fried, and those are all young guys. I think Foltynewicz at some point will put it together. I mean, he does have a good stuff, so I mean, we'll see. But Soroka and Max Fried were very good last year. Don't forget about Austin Riley, a guy who came up last year, was hitting home runs every at-bat, it felt like, then pitchers figured him out, but I think he'll have a pretty good year this year, definitely has a lot of potential, should play a lot of third base because Josh Donaldson is now on the Twins, and, they have a lot of good players. I mean, Ronald Acuna is definitely an MVP candidate, they have Freddie Freeman, another guy who's an MVP candidate, and Dansby Swanson at shortstop, Ozzie Albies, so they have really good players on this team, especially in the infield, and this team is just stacked all around. I like what they did with their bullpen. I know they have Mark Melancon now, and they have a guy, Luke Jackson, who definitely has potential. We'll see what he does. I feel like they added somebody else, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, they have a pretty good bullpen based off the names they have there, so let's see what the Braves do. Number 2, I'm falling for the Phillies once again. So I think I had the Phillies pretty high last year, and I'm doing it once again. So they added Zach Wheeler, they added Didi Gregorius, and Joe Girardi, a lot of people from New York there, and I'm familiar with the area, so I've watched a lot of these guys, and Joe Girardi was a very good manager for the Yankees. I never went under 500, so we'll see if he can do that for the Phillies. Gabe Kapler was relieved of his duties. I think Gabe Kapler is the manager of the Giants now, actually. So they have Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, they have Andrew McCutchen when he's healthy. I do think he'll miss the start of the season. Scott Kingery, who's an underrated player, Gene Segura, and Rhys Hoskins. I do think Hoskins will have a breakout year at some point. He had a good year last year, but wasn't like the quote-unquote breakout type year, but he will at some point. He's a very good player. Their rotation is kind of iffy, but not terrible. They have Aaron Nola, who got much better in the second half of last year, Jake Arrieta, who was pitching hurt last year, Zach Eflin. They have Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez. Can 2 out of those 3 guys step up? That would be definitely big for this team. Their bullpen might be a weakness once again, so that's something to watch out for, but I like their lineup and, top of their rotation, so I went with the Phillies number 2. Number 3, I'm disrespecting the defending champions, the Washington Nationals, so, they have a really good big 3 in their rotation with Max Scherzer, Strasburg, and Patrick Corbin. Joe Ross can never stay healthy, it seems like, and Anibal Sanchez, who I talked about before, is now 36 years old, but we'll see if he can have another good year next year, or this year, I should say. Their one problem in the past has been their bullpen, but it actually looks pretty good this year, so I'm expecting a lot from them. They added Will Harris from the Houston Astros, who was great the last few years. The third baseman in Carter Kieboom, who I talked about before, who I think is going to win NL Rookie of the Year. They have Trey Turner, Juan Soto, even Howie Kendrick, who hit .344 last year, and they added Starlin Castro, who was with the Marlins for the last couple of years, and I guess he was not that bad. He just didn't get a lot of attention because he was on the freaking Marlins. So number 4, I have the Mets, and the Mets are that team that you just never know what to expect from them. So they have a good rotation once again, despite losing Zach Wheeler. They have Jacob deGrom, obviously, Noah Syndergaard, Marcus Semien, Rick Porcello, Michael Wacha. I don't know what they're going to get out of Porcello and Wacha, but we'll see. Maybe one of them has a good year. And Steven Matz, who apparently the Yankees are talking about trading for, but we'll see if that actually happens. They have a lot of underrated hitters like Jeff McNeil, J.D. Davis, and they have guys like Robinson Cano, Ahmed Rosario, Michael Conforto that have to play better. I mean, if the Mets are going to be for real this year, they have to have guys like that play better. Of course, Pete Alonso, he might take a slight step back, but he won't be bad or anything like that. He should be fine. I just don't expect him to hit like 54 home runs again this year. And their bullpen actually looks really good on paper, and I fully expect Edwin Diaz to break out this year. So, I'm not break out. He already was good in Seattle, but I don't think he'll be nearly as bad as he was last year. So, I know a lot of Mets fans are down on Edwin Diaz, but I would not be that way. So, for the Marlins, they have an exciting rotation between Caleb Smith, Sandy Alcantara. They have Jordan Yamamoto. They have Eliezer Hernandez. So, guys with potential right there. And they did add Corey Dickerson, who's a guy that I wanted my Yankees to go out and get. They definitely can use an outfielder right now, so once again, I wish they did that. They added Jesus Aguilar, who was really good with the Brewers a couple years ago, Jonathan Villar, who's an underrated player, and, there's not much going on for them, honestly. I don't really expect much, but as long as their rotation is really good, which is possible, there's a lot of young talent there, that maybe they win around 75 games, but their offense is pretty bad beyond the guys I just mentioned, so I don't really have high expectations for that team. For the NL Central, I have the Brewers in first, so their offense is really scary. I mean, of course, Christian Yelich, and they don't really have a weakness outside of their shortstop, Orlando Arcia, but he's only 25 years old, was a really good prospect at one point, so maybe he turns things around this year. They added Justin Smoke, who I think will have a nice year in Miller Park. He was an unlucky hitter last year based off the metrics. They added Avisail Garcia, who's very underrated. I think he came from the Rays. They have Keston Ura, who was a really good second baseman. He was sent down last year I really don't know why he was sent down last year, because he was playing pretty well, but he should be the full-time second baseman this year, hopefully. So, of course, Christian Yelich is still there, who I do have for MVP this year, and their rotation could be a problem. I mean, it's not awful. They have some guys with pretty decent numbers. I know Brandon Woodruff's a pretty good pitcher, but he needs to stay healthy, but there's really not like an ace or a star in that rotation, so the Brewers might be a team seeking some pitching help at the deadline. Number 2, I have the Cubs, who, the 2016 champions. They only had 84 wins last year, which was disappointing. They added Jeremy Jeffress and Steven Souza Jr., but nothing major. They have a good rotation with John Lester, Jose Quintana, Kyle Hendricks, and Yu Darvish. Their offense should be fine. They still have Anthony Rizzo, Wilson Contreras, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez, and they need guys like Kyle Schwarber and Jason Hayward, who I think is so overrated. I don't know why Jason Hayward is regarded as a good baseball player, or as to why the Cubs gave him that contract, but that's just me, whatever. So they have Ian Happ as well. Need to have a big year from him. He should be the starting center fielder. So the Cubs are an interesting team. They have a lot of talent, but can they put it all together and stay healthy? That's the main thing. Number 3, I have the Reds, and the Reds kind of remind me of the White Sox in a way, because they had a good offseason. They have a lot of talent, but we'll see if they can put it all together. So they added Mike Moustakas, who used to play third base. Now he's playing second base. Nick Castellanos to play right field, who was with the Cubs last year for half a year and was great for them. They have a pretty decent rotation. Luis Castillo. They have Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray. I'm not sure about their 4th or 5th guys. I know they have Wade Miley, who they added as well. So they have some, pretty decent rotation. Their bullpen on paper does not look too bad. They have 3 guys I think that need to have good years on this team. One being Joey Votto, a guy who was, I think, a former MVP, I'm pretty sure, was a really good player at one point. Trevor Bauer, who did have an off year last year, and Nick Senzel, who was a good prospect for this team. He was all right last year, but didn't really live up to the hype. So we'll see if those 3 guys can have good years for them. So I think as long as they do, then they'll be fine, because I like the top of this rotation. They do have a pretty good lineup, so if they can put it all together, especially their bullpen as well, which I think is pretty talented, if they can put it all together, I can see the Reds being a good team this year. Number 4, I have the Cardinals. So the Cardinals won this division last year. I forgot all about that, but they did. And the Cardinals are such a boring team. I mean, they didn't do anything in the offseason. They lost Marcell Ozuna, who was one of their best hitters. Their rotation is pretty questionable after Jack Flaherty and Dakota Hudson. You don't know what you're getting out of Adam Wainwright, Carlos Martinez, or Miles Mikolas. You don't know what you're getting out of those guys. I love Tommy Edman, their third baseman. He should be an everyday starter this year, hopefully. They have Paul Goldschmidt, Paul DeYoung, Colton Wong, Yadier Molina, but none of those guys can really carry an offense outside of Goldschmidt when he gets hot, and he did get hot at one point last year, I think in August, so you can't expect the guy to hit 50 home runs, though. So, I mean, the rest of the offense needs to produce. They could win around 80 to 85 games, but I just don't think they have the firepower that Milwaukee or Chicago has. Number 5, I have the Pirates. I mean, this team has potential with their lineup, but their rotation is a big question mark outside of Chris Archer and Joe Musgrove. They don't have much going on for them, but maybe Mitch Keller, who's a good prospect for them, can just come out and have a good year. I think this might be his second year in the MLB. I think he definitely came up last year at some points and kind of struggled. I think he went sent down, then came back up, and then was pretty good for them, but his first stint in the MLB was not too good. They still have Josh Bell, Gregory Polanco, who definitely needs to play better. He was a big-time prospect. Colin Moran. They have Kevin Newman, who hit 308 last year, Brian Reynolds, who hit 314, and Gerard Dyson, who could steal a bunch of bases for you. He should be the center fielder for that team. They did trade Starling Marte to the Diamondbacks. So, their closer, Keone Kela, I think might have a really good year if he's healthy. I know that guy is like really good when healthy, so we'll see if he can stay healthy. And Jamison Tyone, I mean, he's out for the year with the Tommy John surgery. He got hurt in August last year, so I'd be surprised if we see him this year. But he's a good pitcher. Unfortunately, he probably won't be here this year. But the Pirates lineup's not too bad. They could be all right, but I just don't expect much out of their starting pitching. But this team definitely needs Chris Archer to be good because he'd be a nice trade piece for a contending team possibly. So on to the NL West. Of course, I have the Dodgers in first here. So Mookie Betts, David Price now part of that team. Hopefully a healthy A.J. Pollock and Julio Urias. That's definitely big for them. Gavin Lux, who definitely is a Rookie of the Year candidate. Rotation is very good with Clayton Kershaw, David Price, Walker Buehler, who I do have for Cy Young. They have hopefully a healthy Urias and a healthy Alex Wood. That's definitely big for them. Will Smith, the young catcher, could get even better, and Justin Turner and Corey Seager are definitely big for their success. I mean, I guess you can say Corey Seager has been somewhat underwhelming, so I mean, you know, maybe he finally breaks out and has a big year for them. Justin Turner is one of those guys who just quietly hits .310 every year and just does what he can, and sometimes gets hurt, but when he's out there, he's a really good player. Their bullpen looks really good. They do have Blake Trinan, as I said before, so that definitely could be a nice addition for them because he was really good for the A's in 2018, I believe. Number 2, I have the Diamondbacks, a team that I'm really liking, actually. They added Madison Bumgarner. They signed Cole Calhoun. They traded for Starling Marte. Their rotation could be really good with Bumgarner, Robbie Ray, who's really nasty. They have Mike Leake, who I guess is just a solid veteran. Luke Weaver, who could be really good. He was hurt last year, but looked like he was breaking out, then got hurt, so that's very unfortunate for Luke Weaver, the former Cardinals pitcher. And Zach Gallen, a guy who was traded for some reason last year, I think from the Marlins, but he's a really good pitcher as well. So they have a couple young guys in that rotation that could be really good pitchers if things pan out the right way. Eduardo Escobar is very underrated. They have Carson Kelly, a catcher who has breakout potential. And the big thing is we'll see if Ketel Marte can produce what he did last year because that could be a fluke. It could be a one-year breakout type thing, so we'll see what he can do. The Padres at number 3, they're young and exciting. They have Chris Paddock, Fernando Tatis Jr. to kind of lead them for the next decade, hopefully. They have Trent Grisham, was a young player, a good prospect with the Milwaukee Brewers, but he was traded, I believe, to the Padres. I forget what the trade was, but he was traded there. They have Tommy Pham in another trade with the Rays. They got Emilio Pagan in the bullpen as well in that trade. They have Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer at the corners. They have Zach Davies and Garrett Richards, who definitely need to be good for their rotation this year, so they added those guys. And Garrett Richards is a guy I feel so bad for because I draft him every year in fantasy baseball, hoping that this will be the year he stays healthy. And his numbers are always good, but for some reason that guy always gets hurt. So I feel bad for Garrett Richards, and he's in a good pitcher's ballpark, so hopefully he can finally stay healthy this year. Their bullpen looks good. Of course, I said they added Emilio Pagan from the Rays. They have Kirby Yates still. And, the Padres are exciting. They could be a year away, just like Toronto is. I talked about the Blue Jays before. They're young and exciting, but they could be a year away. I feel the Padres and Blue Jays are somewhat in similar situations here. The Padres might have a better roster because at least they have, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis. I mean, I don't think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has really reached the level of Tatis yet, but Tatis definitely has some injury concerns, and he might regress a little bit, so that's definitely concerning, but we'll see if he can prove me wrong in year 2. Number 4, we have the Rockies. They have Nolan Arenado for now until he gets traded, but it's definitely looking like he'll stay at least for the first half of the year. Maybe he gets traded at the deadline. We'll see. German Marquez and John Gray, they have a lot of potential as their top 2 starters, and really nothing else after that. Their lineup is usually pretty good, and it looks the same way this year. Trevor Story, Arenado, Daniel Murphy, hopefully stays healthy. Did not have a good year last year. I was very high on Murphy last year. I think I thought he was going to be like the batting title winner last year because of Colorado and Daniel Murphy being a really good hitter and coming over from the Nationals, I believe. And I thought it'd be a great year for him, but unfortunately, I think he hurt his thumb or something, had some type of finger injury, and then missed a couple months or so. So hopefully Daniel Murphy's healthy. Charlie Blackmon always puts up good numbers. Ryan McMahon can get even better. David Dahl, who never stays healthy, but he was good when he was healthy last year. And their pitching and bullpen will probably hold them down as usual, but they should put up numbers. Obviously, being in Coors Field definitely helps, but their offense looks pretty good on paper. Number 5, I have the San Francisco Giants, a new manager. Bruce Bochy is out after a long time. They add the former Phillies manager Gabe Kapler. They have a bunch of washed-up veterans like Buster Posey, Evan Longoria, Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, and I'm sure the Giants maybe don't want to let go of those guys yet, but they really haven't put up good numbers in a while, so I'm not sure why they just, continue to do this with those guys, but whatever. They have Mike Yastrzemski, who definitely could be a good player for them in the future. He should play at center field this year, so he did have some good moments last year, and I think had maybe, I don't know if it was like a long hitting streak, but he had a nice streak going at some point. I forget what it was exactly, but Yastrzemski definitely showed some flashes of being a good player last year. The rotation's alright. They have Johnny Cueto, who missed a lot of last year. I don't even know if he played last year, but missed a lot of last year. Kevin Gausman, who was a top prospect at one point. Jeff Samardzija, who, does his thing, gives you a mid-4 ERA, gives you a lot of innings, and gives you a lot of strikeouts, but does have his inconsistencies here and there. And Drew Smyly, formerly with a bunch of teams, the Tigers, I remember, the Rays maybe. I think Smyly missed some time. He might have been with the Mariners last year and missed most of the year, but he's a guy who went healthy. He's a good pitcher. He does, pitch in a good pitcher's park now, where the Giants play, so that definitely could benefit him, and hopefully he stays healthy, but I just don't expect much out of them. I definitely see the Rockies and Giants finishing on the bottom here. I don't know which, could be vice versa. Could be the Rockies last and Giants fourth, but I don't think they can compete with the Padres and the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. I just don't see that happening. So that'll do it for the divisional predictions, and now on to the playoffs. So for my postseason bracket here, let's start with the AL. So we have the Rays on the road to visit the Oakland A's for the second year in a row, and the Rays won this matchup last year, and I have them winning it again. I just think they have better starting pitching. I mean, maybe one of the younger guys for the A's turns into an ace, but I still feel the Rays are just a better all-around team right now, so I'd give them the edge in that one. They would go on to face the Yankees in division round. I was going to say round one. In the divisional round, and of course I have the Yankees winning that series. The Houston Astros would be at Minnesota. I think the Twins have a pretty good year this year. Depends how their pitching does, obviously, but I do have the Twins advancing into the ALCS to face the Yankees, and I honestly, right now, just don't think the Twins have the starting pitching to get by the Yankees. I know that the Yankees have issues of their own, especially with no Severino, but still they have Tanaka and Garrett Cole, and then the Twins only have Jose Barrios and not much after him, not really an ace after that, so that's concerning to me. For the NL, we have the Philadelphia Phillies getting that final wildcard spot to face the Arizona Diamondbacks, who would be home in that game. I have the Diamondbacks, the home team this time, advancing. They would go on to face the Dodgers in LA. Of course, I have the Dodgers winning that series. I do think that there's a chance that the Diamondbacks win that one because they have the pitching to do so, especially if Luke Weaver or Zach Gallen end up having really good years and become ace-worthy type starters, but I just, honestly, I see the Dodgers winning that. Then we would have the Milwaukee Brewers at the Atlanta Braves. I would give the Braves a better record this year. I think the Braves have a little bit better pitching. The Brewers and Braves kind of have similar lineups right now. The Braves might have a little better of a bullpen. I know the Brewers have Josh Hader, but still I think all around the Atlanta Braves have the better bullpen. So I would have the Braves and the Dodgers in the NLCS, and I do believe the Dodgers right now are a better all-around team, but it would not shock me if the Atlanta Braves pulled that one off. So it could be anything. I could see the Twins making the World Series. I don't know. There's not as many options in the AL as there is in the NL. I don't see too many AL teams making it outside of the Yankees, Twins, Astros, maybe the A's if everything goes right for them. I think there's more possibilities in the NL. I think there's better teams in the NL this year, if I'm being honest. So, I could even see the Diamondbacks making it. I'm very high on them, as you guys can tell probably. I could see the Braves making it, the Dodgers making it. If the Brewers got an extra starter or two, I could see them making it. So right now I'd have it as Dodgers, Yankees, and look, I'm a Yankee fan, so I don't want to say this, but I'd probably go with the Dodgers. I just feel like they have more depth right now. And if the Yankees had Severino, I'd be even more torn on this. But the Yankees don't have as many good starters right now as the Dodgers do. So I'd probably give the edge to LA and say the Dodgers will win the World Series. But, of course, I'd like to have the Yankees win. I'd probably say Dodgers in 6 if I had to guess. So that would be my prediction for it. But, yeah, that's it for this video. It's a long one. It probably had to be because we're talking about 30 teams plus the postseason here. So hopefully if you made it this far, you enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you guys next time.